alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We've seen an eventful day after the CM election of yesterday as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. Again, PTI is in court on this very crucial, very important issue. We'll be talking more about what are the ramifications of what the court has said and what we can expect, and also overall as far as the politics on this very important position in Punjab is concerned. What can we expect as far as the question of law is concerned? Some speculation, of course, on what it can mean for Punjab, for the Federation, following the judgment when it comes in, which is expected now on Monday. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Yasir Latif Hamdani, who's a legal expert. Thank you for joining us. Also Hafiz Ehsan Khokar, who's Advocate Supreme Court. Thank you for being with us. Yasir, the crucial question that everything hinges on at this time is, of course, the issue of parliamentary party versus party head at this time. How are you looking at that interpretation and the proceedings of today? What do you think it's going towards?
Well, I think when it comes to interpretation, I don't see how the Supreme Court judgment, very frankly, I don't see how the Supreme Court judgment would have been interpreted in the first place as it was by the Deputy Speaker. It's an unfortunate realization, but that is what it is. But I could see, if you're talking about, the question then becomes, one thing is clear, it's the parliamentary party. But the question is, who represents the parliamentary party and whose will prevails? Is it the party head? If that is the case, then we have the question answered. However, other than the fact that in 2018 there was a judgment by the Supreme Court in the Nawaz Sharif party head case, in which the Supreme Court said that the party head has the wherewithal to say what is and what goes and what doesn't go in a parliamentary proceeding. We don't have anything in terms of precedent or in the Constitution that kind of supports in any case this proposition that perhaps party heads' directions would be final or it wouldn't be the parliament. But then there's another question. Did the parliamentary party actually meet, and was there a direction issued by the parliamentary party? Now, we were discussing this earlier, and I think the very fact that they all voted, all 10 of them for Parvez Elahi, shows a certain consensus between the people of that party within the assembly. So I think that much is clear.
But then parliamentary party would stand for the parliamentary party, the people in the parliament from that party, a majority of them. What would it mean?
Yes, precisely.
So then, going by that definition, if all 10 of the members have voted a certain way, the presumption is, like you said, that there is either a direction or there is some tacit agreement that this is the way they want to go.
Precisely, and then that means there's no particular direction given by anyone other than the fact that the party head sent a letter, but party head doesn't come into play until there is disqualification. So if you look at Article 63A and look at the judgment of the Supreme Court in the reference case, the 63A reference case, the presidential reference, it becomes clear that they're talking about the parliamentary party, and once the parliamentary party so there are defections from the parliamentary party, that's when the party head comes into play.
Okay, let me go to Hafiz Saab. Hafiz Saab, do you agree with this? You think that by and large it's clear, because there is some diversified, some difference of opinion on this also. There are some people saying that because of what happened earlier on, because of the interpretation in 63A that was given earlier by the court, that is why there is confusion on this issue.
There are two aspects of this case. One aspect is that in recent months, and it is unprecedented in the political and constitutional history of Pakistan, that we have brought so many constitutional, legal, and to some extent they are the political issues to the superior courts of the country. And there are certain judgments on that. One is the famous judgment is the presidential reference number 1 of 2022 filed by the President of Pakistan. Then there is another judgment by the Supreme Court of Pakistan on a suo motu case relating to the rulings of the Deputy Speaker National Assembly. There is and the detailed judgment has been given last week by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Then there are certain judgments by the Lahore High Court on that particular point, that the appointment of the governor and then the role of the speaker and then the election of the chief minister. So there were so many issues which we have seen in Supreme Court or the High Courts of Pakistan. And every time there is a judgment of the Supreme Court. And interestingly, when Supreme Court of Pakistan took a suo motu notice on the Deputy Speaker rulings wherein he did not place the vote of no confidence motion to the House on the ground that it is the violation of the Article 5 of the Constitution. And then it was claimed immunity by the PTI and the previous government that there is a bar of Article 69(1) of the Constitution of Pakistan. The Supreme Court cannot intervene into the matters. And then Supreme Court had decided, and now on the same time the current ruling party, they are now claiming that there is an immunity of Article 69(1) of the Constitution. So what I am seeing that all it is about the interpretation which suits every political party or every person who belongs to a particular political party. In this case, there are three issues. One is the maintainability of the petition.
Which I think now, obviously it's been taken up. So that of course is...
Yeah, so it has crossed. The second is there might be the stance would be taken that it would be the immunity of the Speaker's ruling. So there is already a judgment of the Supreme Court of Pakistan that there is no absolute blanket immunity under Article 69(1) of the Constitution. The only immunity is available relating to the business of the Assembly, and where there is a violation of the constitutional provisions, immunity gone. The third, the important would be the interpretation of the Article 63A of the Constitution. On one side, Supreme Court has already hold on the point that the process and the proceedings initiated by any person, by the head of the party or the political party, it is absolute, and the intention of the legislature was that it should not be horse trading in the country. So now the only question would be that whether the first the letter of a parliament of the party head would have the precedence over the proceedings, or it is the decision of the parliamentary party who will decide and then who will communicate. To my understanding, the law is very much clear. The process of the votes relating to the three conditions under Article 63A, one is the vote of confidence, vote of no confidence, and a money bill. It is the decision of the parliamentary party. And the Constitution itself says it considered as a whole the party for the purposes of the 63A. When the parliamentary party decides about a certain things as a whole and it has acted upon, and if there is a violation, and violation relating to the decision or the process which is already agreed by a political party through parliamentary party, then parliamentary party would write to the party head that this is a violation, and you can initiate a reference, and before the reference the concerned person should be given the show cause notice, and then the matter will bring to the Election Commission of Pakistan. Interestingly, here there is another interpretation, and which in the last case some constitutional experts say that it was a reading in the Constitution by the Supreme Court of Pakistan when they hold that the votes given by a parliamentary party, members of the parliamentary party, against the instructions of the party, it would not be counted. So this is the interesting case in that. So already Supreme Court has decided, and today's observation is also very much clear. They have given the notices to the deputy speakers, and in that particular case, another issue is that the Deputy Speaker had relied completely on the judgment of the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
That's what I want to come to, because that's what Supreme Court has asked, asked them to explain.
And there was no such, which was relied upon the Deputy Speaker. He hurriedly, he brought a letter and he read on it, and on a query by one of the member of the Provincial Assembly.
And is it true that the instructions, I'll come back to you, Yasir, the instructions that are supposed to be communicated are then supposed to be communicated to the party, the parliamentary party. In this case, the letter, we don't know, that was with the Deputy Speaker, was with the Deputy Speaker. So we don't know if there was instructions, even if, we argue
even just for a moment, that the matters were already sub judice before the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and Supreme Court asked there would be two candidates. One from the either side with the PMLN, and second from the PTI coalition government. But in that particular case, interesting, the direction was issued by the head of party to a person who is already contesting the election for the Chief Minister, and he had already submitted his papers. So the information or the direction received by the members, I believe, would not matter at that time, because it is a continuation of the proceedings, and even the direction has not been discussed during the meeting.
Let me come back to you. We have with us Salman Akram Raja, who's a senior lawyer and also a constitutional expert. Thank you for being with us. Raja Sahab, how are you looking at what's happened as far as the proceedings in Supreme Court is concerned, and also particularly as far as this whole debate now between the party head and parliamentary party is concerned? Also, particularly the directions that are supposed to be given, that that the PMLN is now arguing, are they supposed to be communicated to the parliamentary party? In this case, of course, the letter was read by the Deputy Speaker, and we have no way of knowing whether those instructions were really communicated or not communicated. What really went on?
No, I think the legal position is very clear. It is the parliamentary party that issues directions to its members regarding voting in the matters covered by Article 63A, which includes the election of the Chief Minister. And the party head has absolutely no role in the issuance of a direction to the members of the parliamentary party. So I think that situation is completely clear constitutionally, and it's I don't know why this dispute is thought to have been raised. And we'll get a judgment very soon, if not on Monday, a few days after that. So that really, I think, is the basis of what the Deputy Speaker did yesterday, that the letter of the party head had somehow overridden the votes of the members of the parliamentary party of the Q League. I think this is a completely ridiculous and unconstitutional position. And whether or not the letter of Chaudhry Shujaat had been communicated to the members of the parliamentary party of the Q League is irrelevant, because he had no power to constrain their voting. And it does seem that it was not communicated, because it's a secret kind of thing that he pulled out of his pocket and read on the floor of the House. Because had it been communicated, sent to the 10 members of the Q League, it is inevitable that it would have come out, the media would have known about it, they would have disclosed it, they would have protested against it. So the whole thing was kept under wraps, but as I say, it is irrelevant. Chaudhry Shujaat had no power to stop members of the Q League from voting one way or the other. It is only the parliamentary party. Article 63A is very clear.
Salman Sahab, we've seen now, we've been talking about this, that as far as going back to courts is concerned, it's become, one of those things, whether it's one party or the other party, whether we talk about the PMLN, the PDM, or we talk about the PTI, recourse to the superior courts is now part of the game, so to speak. As a lawyer, as a constitutional expert, how are you looking at that development? Because we are going back to courts again and again, and then we are also having, the ramifications of the court holding one way or the other, and then of course, a lot that is being said against the courts, against the judiciary. These developments overall, how are you looking at this as a lawyer? And what do you think it means as far as, jurisprudence is concerned, as far as what, the kind of trends we are setting for the future, the institutions overall? I'd like your opinion on that.
Well, ultimately, it is the courts who are to interpret the Constitution. If there is going to be a constitutional controversy, a debate over the interpretation of the Constitution, then inevitably the courts have to get involved. So I don't think that is necessarily something to lament about or to worry about. Okay. Yes, it would be nice if people were to act reasonably and not take outlandish positions which force the matter into the courts. To my mind, what happened, with the ruling of Qasim Suri and what's happened now with the ruling of the Deputy Speaker were both avoidable events. These things should not have happened. There were clear parliamentary understandings and traditions that covered the situation, and people went out of the way to create a new constitutional situation. So going forward, one hopes that political parties, politicians, parliamentary parties, parliamentarians will develop a sense of constitutionalism and not do things which provoke this kind of a controversy and take matters into the courtroom. But if it happens, then I'd rather that these things are decided in the courtroom than on the streets or in any other kind of quarrel. So the courts ultimately are there to resolve these disputes, and it's fine. One hopes there was less disputation, but if there is going to be dispute, then the courts have to get involved.
As far as the party head and the parliamentary party position is concerned, as far as the confusion that is being said, I mean, the other side, as far as the PMLN's argument is concerned, we'd like to understand a little bit, what do you think it's being based upon? That also, is an interpretation of Article 62A. Isn't that true, as far as the way that it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court? That's what the PMLN is arguing.
Yes, I think what they're doing is they are relying on some language in the judgment regarding Nawaz Sharif remaining party head after he'd been removed as Member of Parliament and Prime Minister under Article 62(1)(f). Then there was a subsequent judgment that said that he can't even remain party head because the party head has tremendous powers and is a very important constitutional figure. Now, the Supreme Court never said that the party head has unlimited powers to control how members of parliament are going to vote. There is nothing in that judgment that says that the party head has that power. Just because that judgment said that the party head is a very important persona does not mean that the party head was being given the power to control how members of parliament of his party are going to vote. So that reference is being made, but to my mind, wrongly. It's irrelevant. The other reference that is made is to the deseating of the 25 PTI dissidents. Now, what happened there was that a direction was issued originally to to the members of the PTI parliamentary party by the party head, Mr. Imran Khan. Now, when the matter went to the election commission, before the election commission, the position taken by the PTI was that, in fact, the direction of the party head was also backed by a decision of the parliamentary party. So this principle was conceded that it is the parliamentary party whose direction matters and not that of the party head. And minutes were produced of meetings of the parliamentary party to establish that there was a decision of the parliamentary party to vote one way and not the other. So that principle was conceded, even though there was dispute regarding the legitimacy or the veracity of those minutes, whether they were an afterthought, whether they were cooked up or not. But the constitutional principle that members of the parliamentary party of a political party can only be bound by a decision of the parliamentary party itself and not of the party head was conceded. So that reference is also not correct ultimately, and the matter there also still remains in the Supreme Court, and now I think the Supreme Court will clarify, because this issue has come up in this matter, and they will clarify the respective powers of the party head and the parliamentary party. The party head comes into play only after members or some members violated a decision or a direction of a parliamentary party. Then the party head decides whether to send a reference against them to the Speaker or the Chairman of the Senate and then on to the Election Commission or not. So that is the power that the parliamentary head, the party head rather, has. Once there has been defiance of a decision of the parliamentary party, only then does the party head feature in the Constitution. So I think this will all get clarified in this case.
What
But
is
the
the
situation to my
status
mind
of-
is already clear.
What is the status of this communique, that's, the legal status of this communique that's come from the PDM saying that, a full bench should hear this case? Will that, have any effect? Is there likely to be any change in the bench at all? Does it, does that ever happen?
It is discretionary with the Honorable Chief Justice. So normally a request for a larger bench or the full court is made through an application filed in court. I don't know if that has been done. But even if that is done, it is really the discretion of the Chief Justice whether he feels that such a bench should be formed or not. So there's no right available to any political party to demand a larger bench or the full court.
But is it possible, is it likely, when a case has been heard, I mean, it's right in the middle of it, and, one can expect perhaps a judgment on Monday for there to be, a formulation of a larger bench, or it's unlikely in your opinion?
I would say it's unlikely now, given that they've indicated that they want to proceed on Monday and conclude the matter very quickly. It's unlikely that they will now enlarge the bench.
Is it in cases of, these kind of political cases or important cases that may have, ramifications of such a nature, large scale, for there to be a larger bench, a full bench, or, that's, like you said, discretionary and it doesn't matter really?
Well, it is discretionary, but if you ask me as a matter of principle, I would say that it should be as large a bench as possible when matters of fundamental constitutional importance are being decided. I would have a larger bench rather than a smaller bench, but given the urgency, I mean, the matter was filed late last night, early this morning, was heard, immediately, So in this situation, the creation of a much larger bench or the summoning of the full court was clearly not possible. And this matter can't be allowed to linger on for very long either. So I think in these circumstances, it was difficult for the Honorable Chief Justice to form a larger bench. But normally, I would agree that it should be a larger bench that decides matters of fundamental constitutional import.
Other than politically speaking, lastly, if this goes the way that it looks like it's going to go, do you think it will have potentially ramifications in the center also? Because we're looking at this time PTI, which has its members, they say that they've resigned. We don't know the status, whether they've been accepted or not. It seems to be rather up in the air at this time. But the members at this time in the parliament, PTI members, about 3-4 of them, they are going to be forming the parliamentary party in the center, so they will be taking decisions as far as PTI is concerned in the center. Will it have some effect for that also, or no?
Well, in the center, either there will be the full PTI parliamentary party in the National Assembly or none. If they've all decided to resign, then they will all no longer be members once they confirm their resignations to the Speaker. So that is one issue. But I think what you're referring to or alluding to is the political instability that might arise if the federal government has antagonistic governments in two major provinces, KP and Punjab. So would the federal government be able to survive? Well, in a technical constitutional sense, yes, as long as it retains its majority in the National Assembly, it can function. There may be practical difficulties, but constitutionally speaking, there can be a federal government that is distinct from the governments in the provinces.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us, Salman Akram Raja. We have with us Azim Nazir Tarid, who's a law minister. Thank you so much for being with us. Tarid Sahab, how are you looking at what's happened as far as the decision that is pending on the Chief Minister election decision is concerned? How are you looking at the decision that is likely to come, and what are your expectations? Because we have seen some comments come in from the Supreme Court.
Thank you very much. I'm quite optimistic, actually. What I have read in the previous decisions of the court, the Supreme Court, the High Court, and the Election Commission of Pakistan, in as regards to the 25 defected members of PTI from Punjab Assembly who were not only de-seated, but their votes were also not counted in the count, and that's why this exercise was carried out, the runoff election amongst Hamza Shahbaz and Pervez Ilahi. So, keeping in mind these three different decisions, one handed down by Supreme Court of Pakistan when they interpreted Section Article 63A of the Constitution, and quite surprisingly, it was actually laid down or held by the Supreme Court that vote may be casted in favor of a candidate against the directions of the party head, but that the same shall not be counted for. Then Election Commission of Pakistan, relying upon that decision and the decision of the previous decisions, de-seated those MPs when the other side also raised objections that there was no parliamentary party decision or directive for them. And in paragraph 34 of the ECP judgment clearly states that it is the party head who commands the party. It is the party head who is the person concerned who could issue such kind of directions. So these irregularities are immaterial. Therefore, the Election Commission ordered the seating of those 25 MPAs. They also, some of them filed an appeal before the Honorable Supreme Court, which was taken up during the previous weeks. But the Supreme Court was not convinced with the argument of the counsel for those MPAs that there was no parliamentary party decision or directive, but it was only the party head's directive which was conveyed by Mr. Asad Umar, that it has been directed by Mr. Imran Ahmad Khan Niazi, Chairman PTI, that the members belonging to his party shall vote in favor of such and such candidate. So I think it's quite clear now, and what we read in the newspapers and
Imran Khan at that time was also in the parliament, wasn't he?
Sorry?
Imran Khan at that time was also in the parliament?
Yes, Mr. Imran Khan was in the parliament at that time. I'm talking of 2nd of April 2022. And it hardly matters. It hardly matters if he's in the parliament or he's outside the parliament. Even there are decisions authored by some of the honorable judges who are now the member of the bench, where they said that in Pakistani politics, the party head enjoys most important and crucial place in the party, and it is the party head around whom the entire party revolves, and it is the party head who is the vote fetcher. Now, these are the interpretations of the relevant provisions of law. A person of common prudence can very well gathered and actually reach to the conclusion that it is the party head who has to issue the directives that where to vote and where not to vote. So I'm quite positive that when the entire material would be brought before the court, that the letter issued by Chaudhry Shujaat Hussain, the president of PML, the detailed ruling of Deputy Speaker, and the previous decisions of the Election Commission of Pakistan, the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and even the earlier decisions, I'm quite positive and optimistic that it is a case where the Supreme Court would not ultimately reach the conclusion the people are foreseeing.
Right. Thank you for giving us your time. That was Azam Nazir Tarid. Yasir, you heard both Salman Akram Raja and Azam Saab also. What is your opinion on what, of course there's a diverse, there's a difference of opinion, clear difference of opinion here. And when Azam Saab says, he says, the detailed ruling of the Deputy Speaker will be given in court. So one presumes that of course these reasons will be listed. How do you look at it?
I still feel that as much as I would want, would want to accept Mr. Azam Nazir Tarid's view, but I think what Salman Saab said had a lot of weight in it. And I think we spoke about the 2018 judgment already, the one that PMLN would eventually rely on. that judgment does not speak of party head having the prerogative of deciding what the party policy is, parliamentary party policy is. So in my opinion, the situation seems to, or in the balance it seems that Parvez Elahi has an edge.
Let me, I'm going to go to, before I go to Hafiz Sahab, I'm going to go to Abdullah Mumtaz Kalun ji. Abdullah, this judgment now, you know, one can expect perhaps for there to be a decision on Monday. How is the PTI looking at things overall? Even if it does go your way, what is the plan as far as the future is concerned, as far as the PTI is concerned? Considering, you know, of course, as far as the federation, you know, we've been talking about this for a while now, but your members have resigned in the center. The resignations, we don't know if they've been accepted or not. Is there a game plan? Is there, what does the PTI expect now? What do they propose to do after this? Is there a chance that there can be some sort of agreement with other political parties on the future course of action if this does go your way?
MAHRUKH, thank you for inviting me on your show. As far as the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is concerned, our position is very clear, and you can see the anger on the streets of Punjab, all the cities yesterday, last night, after Deputy Speaker's bogus ruling. There is a sense of rage that had erupted in the hearts of all the Punjabis up and down this province. That their mandate had clearly been robbed, and not just robbed, it had been brazenly been robbed. You saw how Rana Sanaullah Sahib and Maryam Aurangzeb just only a few days ago said on live TV during a press conference that it's only a matter of a few votes and making those disappear that they can manage this election. So clearly the intention was there. And we were very surprised when the Deputy Speaker gave this bogus ruling. He furnished this letter from his pocket, which he had received a day before from Chaudhry Shujat. And you've heard the legal experts as well, Rana Samanakam Raja Sahib, Yasir Latif Sahib, who've both given weight to the fact that the parliamentary party is the one that has precedence and importance instead of the party head.
Abdullah,
Indeed, the wording.
Let me interject for 1 second. As far as, you know, let's leave. I mean, we'll know, of course, on Monday.
We can't leave, MAHRUKH. It's such a serious question. I mean, the whole of Punjab. I was there at the Supreme Court registry today, and virtually there was 25 of those media trucks there. All of Pakistan's eyes are on this deputy ruling, the ruling that's been given, which clearly violates the constitution. And MAHRUKH, the other thing is, which I'm highly surprised at, is the same people who gave out the hue and cry back in April during Qasim Suri Saab's ruling are now celebrating. So clearly, the constitution was just a piece of paper for those guys. I mean, they were protesting.
As, you know, as far as political parties and, you know, the way that we have seen, you know, of recourse to courts is concerned, you know, of course, that's something the PTI and the PMLN both have done.
Yes.
The PDM also. But overall, you know, my question is, as far as this decision is concerned, as far as overall the situation is concerned, what is the PTI now proposed to do? What is your, you know, is there a larger picture in mind as far as the PTI is concerned?
There is a larger picture. We're calling for elections, immediate elections. Prime Minister Imran Khan at that time said so on live TV, and our party leadership have said so time and time again. We want fresh elections. You've seen the public mandate. The public are seething at how the mandate was firstly stolen back in April, and now again. Clearly, the PDM coalition do not wish to hold elections. We wished for a clear date to be given as to when the elections will be called,
Abdullah,
and that's what the PDM is shying away from.
As far as, okay, you know, of course, I get your point as far as elections are concerned and the stance of the PTI as far as elections. But, you know, as far as the other issues in the country are concerned, of course, we are seeing again and again the rise in dollar, overall the economic, the cost of this kind of political instability, which we are seeing in the, you know, the way that the economy is suffering. Is it not better for the PTI at this time, because whoever, you know, is going to handle the economy, and, you know, before the vote of no confidence, whatever issues that PTI as a political party was facing internally and also in government will again come into the fore. So, you know, are you keeping all of that in mind? Are you keeping...
MAHRUKH, the people of Punjab had all those factors in mind The inflation, the rise in prices, the economy. Political instability leads to economic instability. The reason why we have another chapter of political instability after what was done in April is because PDM is refusing to accept the mandate of the people. We have a minority caretaker CM. For the first time in the history of the Punjab, we have something called a trustee CM. Never before have we had a trustee CM before. So why does the PDM refuse to accept the mandate of the people? Once we have political stability, economic stability will follow. There's no reason for the PDM to have created this new and fresh crisis like they've done yesterday. There's absolutely no need for that. And I still urge
let me come back
PDM
to you. Let me come back to you. Yasir, do you think, let's look at the political picture for 1 second. Let me come back to you. Hafiz Saab, politically speaking, we are looking, there were issues as far as governance was concerned. There were issues as far as economy was concerned. There were issues as far as inflation was concerned. When the PTI was in power also, one cannot say that there were no issues. When we've seen this vote of no confidence, we've seen, after that, those seem to have gone into the background. But do you think political parties, and particularly the PTI, are not, fully keeping themselves cognizant of the fact that these issues will again, come to the fore? They are important, elections or no elections. They are going to have to deal with those same issues.
There are two areas. One area is that there is no argument on that the economic situation or the political situation of Pakistan since 1947, it is in a crisis. If you are in a power, everything is right, and if you are not in a power, everything is bad. The PTI, when came into power, he blamed the previous government, and he said every disaster they made on all sides. And when the other party now, who is a current party, he is saying that they have made tunnels for us, the disaster tunnels for us, and they are comparing the Pakistan from both sides. First the sitting government, and then now the previous government, that Pakistan would be made a Sri Lanka, and which is unfortunate. Sri Lanka is a small country, it's not more than Lahore. Pakistan is a 220 million population. We have a nuclear power. We have the best, the brain in Pakistan. We have the best, the top 10 countries in the world on the different sectors. We are the 5th largest country in terms of population.
We have a strategic position.
We have the strategic positions. We have the best, so this is unfortunate. And the market, because I've also been the practicing in the tax side or the corporate side, the markets behaves what you are signaling by the opposition or the government, and which is unfortunate on both sides, that when they are in the government, they are blaming that the Pakistan would go to the default.
Don't you think a maturer course of action here?
Until unless, if in this particular situation, one party is demanding for the general election, and they are saying that we will not go under the present the chief election commissioner. So if after 3, 4, 5 months, if there is an agreement on that side, this election will not be accepted by either sides. If it is won by the PTI, the other party will not accept, and if the other party will accept, the PTI will not accept. So we need to sit on certain areas.
So there has to be some sort of dialogue.
Some sort of dialogue on 3 areas. One is on the election side. We need to have the charter of election, the reforms. We need to have the charter of economy. We need to have the charter of governance, and we need to have the charter of justice. If we are going without these documents, consensus, and by all the parties, the situation will remain same, and you will see, which is unfortunate on the other side, the Pakistan is the lowest in subcontinent in terms of justice, in terms of governance, and in terms of the currency.
Which, by the way,
it is
was
not
one
happening.
of those things
It is
on
not
the agenda.
happening in other, the countries, who are in the South Asia. It is not with Bangladesh, not with India, not with Afghanistan, not with Bhutan, the Maldives.
Let me come back.
Yeah.
Yasir, what Hafiz Saab is saying is very important, considering, of course, that as far as reforms are concerned, when you talk about justice, when you talk about the various issues as far as police reform is concerned, legal reforms, all of those things were on the agenda as far as PTI was concerned when it came into power. And now we are seeing statements from Imran Khan Saab like, you know, he didn't have the requisite numbers, he needed his allies. Well, he clearly seems to need his allies today also, the way that the situation is as far as the CM election is concerned. And if we have an election the way that they're saying, the demand, don't you think it's possible that he may again get the kind of hung parliament that, or somebody, you know, overall we don't know where the majority will fall, of course. We don't know which way it will go, if it goes his way at all. So overall, you know, those issues are still pending and we don't know, you know, as far as the PTI is concerned. We've seen the 3.5 years of governance, which now seem to have gone into the background.
Yes, and I feel that the very fact that the government, the way it went, well, PTI government, the way it went out, actually was a blessing in disguise for PTI. Had that not been the case, you wouldn't have this narrative, this far narrative that been sort of,
you know, the cipher and the
yes.
You know, overall we've seen, you know, it seems to have given them an out.
Exactly, and with this now, with this new constitutional crisis that has come to fore, I feel that we've given, or in this case the government of the day has given Imran Khan another opportunity to play the victim. So I'm sorry to say the PTI narrative is that they are the victims, and we just, or the government of the day is just simply giving them more opportunities to become victims.
Don't you think it would have been better for them, I mean certainly maturer for them, if they had now, you know, what is, you know, an agreement or constitutional vote of no confidence, they could have actually come into the assemblies, they could have criticized the government wherever they felt that their criticism was needed, instead of this kind of, you know, the kind of tactics that we've seen, the kind of vote, you know, the kind of instability that has stemmed from the narrative that the PTI has given out. The cost of it, which is, you know, the cost Pakistan is going to pay.
Exactly, and I find the entire concept that just because your government's been removed through a vote of no confidence, come back to the parliament and try and take back the government.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's how democracies work.
And it's not a huge majority, only 2-3 members, you know.
Exactly, and you get your, so basically if that is what happens, it happens. If instead of going on the roads and coming up with this narrative of the great grand conspiracy against your government, just stay in the parliament and change the government when you can. And I'm sure by now they would have gotten the opportunity to carry out their own vote of no confidence. So I definitely see your point.
And as far as this criticism, this coming to, you know, going on the streets is concerned, and also, you know, as far as institutions are concerned, we are not just seeing a criticism on one institution, but across the board, whether it's the Election Commission, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the establishment, it's coming from everywhere. Ji Hafiz Sahab.
People of Pakistan who believes that there is no option except to work under the Constitution of Pakistan, they demand that there should be a political stability in Pakistan, there should be economic stability in Pakistan, there should be a rule of law in the country, there should be equal opportunities for all the citizens of Pakistan. They should have the equal opportunities of the education, the health, and in other social justice sector areas, which is missing, I must say, for the last many years, that if anyone worked on that side, the situation in the ranking of Pakistan would have been a better way. If you talk about governance, we are 140th position. Right. If you talk about the education, we are 170th number. If you talk about on the health side, we are in the lowest in the South Asia. If you talk about the devaluation of our currency, we are the lowest in Asia. And interestingly, on the other side, when we speak about the overseas Pakistanis, they are sending us the remittances, and the recent figure given by the State Bank of Pakistan it was more than $31 billion US dollars. But on the other side, simultaneously, we don't have even $1 billion in terms of the foreign direct investment in Pakistan. So actually, these are the issues which needs to be addressed by our leaders, by the policy makers, and by the legislatures. And we need to have a minimum 15 to 20 years plan. How we will govern Pakistan, and how will be
and for
the Pakistan,
we need to have that kind of
and how will be the constitution. And it is unprecedented. I early saying that no one in world that we have seen unprecedented. One time there is a recommendations or the summary by the Prime Minister, and the President of Pakistan is not accepting.
Right.
And sometimes, so these are the issues which needs to be addressed, and these are the genuine concerns of the people of Pakistan.
Let me, your quick comments, Abdullah. My question to you is, if the PTI's demand for elections is met, and your party does not do as well as you expect, will the PTI then accept the results, or will you come on the streets again?
MAHRUKH, it remains to be seen as to what will happen in the future. One cannot predict how the results will go, but one thing is clear: we won the election yesterday in the Punjab Assembly, and the vote of the mandate, the people of the Punjab has not been accepted. I mean, even if we were to win again in the future, who's to say the same forces that have lined up against us will try to line up again and refuse to give the people of Pakistan their representative government. I mean, Yasir Latif Hamdani Saab has said that this was an out for the PTI government. No, it was not an out for the PTI government. If this was an out for the PTI government, we wouldn't be protesting on the streets. We would be actually celebrating. We'd be jubilant. So the thing is, one thing has become very clear, is that the PDM coalition government had no economic plan. They only came to power to amend the electoral laws, which they did. They came to power to amend the accountability laws, which they did, but they did not have any economic plan, which is why this country is racing towards economic default. It's a free-falling economy. The dollar is going up and up, and there's absolutely no solution. We need to call for fresh elections. The people have spoken in the elections, the by-elections.
But that would also have been if you had agreed, if your party had agreed to come to the assemblies. It certainly would have been made. It would have made for a more stable Pakistan. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being with us, Yasir Latif Hamdani Saab. Thank you for joining us, Hafiz Ahsan Khokhar. Thank you for being with us, Salman Akram Raja. Thank you for joining us. Abdullah Mumtaz Kaloon, thank you for joining us. Azam Nazir Tariq, thank you for your time. As far as overall situation is concerned, certainly at this time the situation is tumultuous, to say the least, and we don't know what will happen as far as the Supreme Court judgment is concerned. Of course, both sides are hopeful, and they expect things to go their way. As far as overall stability is concerned, certainly there is a case to be made for dialogue between political parties, so that we can move towards a more stable Pakistan, which is what's needed as far as economy is concerned, as far as our future in terms of reform into our justice, law, police, all of the areas where reform is needed, all of those things. Of course, none of it can really work without there being some sort of dialogue between major political parties. Are we going to move towards that? Let's see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us today on Press Week.